Got any jokes? Got any jokes?
Depot on the beat.
Boone, you're muted.
What's good with the businesses, man? It's your boy DT3, the Boom Beezy, man, the MMA best surgeon, man, aka Dr. Spot, aka the Doctor. And we back at you again with Combat Cannon MMA Podcast, episode 8. What to do with the folk, man? What's up, Serge, man? How was the weekend, man? What's going on with you, man?
I mean, the week was pretty good. I think the fights, the bets could have gone a little bit better. Some stuff it could have rolled our way a little bit better. We're gonna get into that, but Man, I don't know, man. Has there been a bigger week where you can look around and say, well, I don't really know what else anyone is watching this weekend in the fight world, in the fight game entirely, other than UFC 259. You know what I mean? Like, what else? What else is anyone watching this weekend? You know what I mean, man? There's so many huge fights. You just got it stacked up with 3 champ fights. You got names littered throughout the card, and we're gonna get into it. I mean, names from, guys like Dominic Cruz. You got Askar Askarov taking on Joseph Benavidez. We got fights all over, people. And this is kind of one of those weekends where, we're spoiled here as MMA fans, as UFC fans. We are spoiled. And I mean, couldn't be a better time to, get ready to order UFC 259 and enjoy yourself, because it is going to be a hell of a weekend. It's going to be a hell of a weekend.
Biggest fight card of the year in all combat sports: boxing, kickboxing, Muay Thai, MMA. I don't care what promotion when you want to say MMA. This is the biggest fight card in all of combat sports what we finna witness this weekend, man. Biggest fight card.
Yeah, and
I'm calling it. And it's obviously the biggest fight card of the year, no doubt.
I would have to probably agree. I'd say that, it's so good. I'd want to start talking about it right away, but we're gonna leave it for a little bit now. We're gonna get cooking on what went down this last weekend. We had Jairzinho Rozenstruik taking on Cyril Gane, and that fight. I mean, wasn't that great. Wasn't what really the fans expected, but still a good showing from both men. I think obviously, there was a little bit of hesitancy. Both guys, I think, respecting each other's power. Obviously, Rozenstruik not wanting to throw shots, not really wanting to engage too much with Gane, and Gane kind of being his typical athletic self, being able to kind of, mix it up with a versatility, kind of move around and kind of pretty much dictate the fight. Pretty much, I think, winning every single round. I mean, as far as, like I said, I mean, I think we'll see even Jairzinho Rozenstruik at post-fight, him doing some interviews saying, terrible performance for me, worst performance of my career type stuff. You know what I mean? Obviously, that comes to mind when you have a poor fight or an outing in which, you don't really put out as many shots as you might want to. You might not, have the kind of game plan. It might not kind of go your way. But we've seen in kind of a tendency in some of Jairzinho's fights, like, if you're a mover, you can have kind of success on him, like we were talking about last week. And Cyril Gane is definitely one of those athletic guys who's able to kind of mix it up with kicks, movement, and, freeze a guy like Jairzinho in a lot of those positions and really not make him want to, enter into the exchange, into the kind of range where he's exchanging with Cyril Gane. So, I mean, that's kind of what he had to do to win, but Cyril Gane pretty much kept him at bay the entire time, moving around him. I mean, people are hating on it. I mean, what are you gonna do? We can't have bomb performances every single weekend like the weekend before with Derek Lewis and Curtis Blades. You know what I mean? Where we have some sort of crazy upset like that. I mean, I'm sure that's what
somebody supposed to go to sleep, Serge.
Yeah,
somebody was supposed to go to sleep. Somebody was supposed to go to sleep. I thought Game was going to perform a whole lot better than he performed, and honestly, I don't see nothing special about him. I don't.
Okay.
I don't see nothing. I see him as being a prototypical big athletic dude. He looked like the dude that played D-line in high school and college and took a couple Muay Thai classes, did little jits here or there, got good, beat up everybody in the gym. It was like, hey, man, I can do this UFC shit. And he beat up a couple cats in there, here or there. And then now all of a sudden he's ranked in the UFC. And like I told you earlier, I think Felipe had get him.
Yeah,
I think the pressure, the constant pressure, and then that ticky-tack. You a big guy. You're a big guy. Put some pep in your step. Put some power in them punches. And I just think, what's the opponent's name? I can't pronounce it. What's
Jairzinho Rozenstruik.
Yeah, Rosie. Yeah. He ain't got no accuracy. His punch accuracy is terrible. He sometimes he overcommits to where when he swings, he's swinging over you, and he goes right into the clinch, and it's easy to get him in the clinch because he's overly committed to his offense. And I just don't see him doing too much in the UFC contention. I don't even see how he was able to get ranked in the UFC. I mean, I don't see either of these guys being that good, in my personal opinion. You know what I mean? But
I hear you.
It is what it is, you know what I mean? But I do think, hats off to Gang. You won the fight. You did what you had to do. I just think Derek Lewis put your ass to sleep in 2 rounds.
And that might be the fight that's being made, people. I also think that, and it sounds crazy, and they were kind of already alluding to it even before the fight, like if Gane won, it probably won't happen now because Dana's probably pissed on him, and now it's like Gane's like, oh, I think I'm a lot better than you think I am.
Bro, the fight was boring.
I know, but he's a perfect guy to have in case fucking anyone falls out of that Stipe fight. Have him just sitting there waiting.
That's
just in case. Just in case. He's not injured. No injuries, no suspension, no medical. He's not on the medical list post-fight. Let him go out there and like, I'm sure he'd love to. You know what I mean? Like, just in case. I'm not saying it's like a bad omen or anything to have a guy there like that. Like, we've seen it with plenty of fights. We saw it right even before the end of the year. I mean, I think it's just the safe thing to do. Let's get a guy out there that can just pop in there, you know what I mean, just in case something happens, in case we have someone pull out. I mean, from anywhere, right? I'd have to keep looking in advance at 261 or whatever the card is in which Stipe's fighting on. I believe it's 260. It's in like 3 weeks from now, I think, maybe 3 weeks. This weekend, 2 fight nights, and then 260 with Stipe. So I mean, it's all coming at us pretty quickly. But as far as just taking a look at the co-main event real quick from this past weekend, obviously.
Boring.
Hey. Man, I think 2 high-level guys. I actually thought, honestly, that was a pretty high-level fight as far as grappling from 2 guys that are both high-level. One guy being a little bit more of a jiu-jitsu expert. The other guy being a little bit more of a heavy top-pressure kind of guy. Wanting to put you in positions of, you know, where it's advantageous for him to land strikes and stuff like that. The other guy kind of just, you know, looking for submissions from different spots. And honestly, look, pretty good fight. I mean, I'm not gonna hate on it too much. I'm not gonna hate on a fight where, you know, both guys are, you know.
Krylov got tired, and I think if Krylov wouldn't have got tired in later in the fight, I think it would have been more entertaining because he was doing good with his movement. Mm-hmm. But I just think as the fight was getting on, just the pressure was too much, and just Krylov, and you could tell he was getting battered, like broken down, like physically and mentally as the fight was progressing. You could see him breaking down, and I just think he just didn't have it mentally, physically. He didn't have it to just push through a tough, hard fight like that. He's good in the beginning at first, but once he see like, man, I gotta grind this out. I gotta really look, man. Like it becomes survival mode at that particular time.
I know, right? We've seen.
For me, it was boring fight. It was just boring fight.
Yeah,
it wasn't. I see why Dana White didn't. Nobody got like fight of the night type shit. Nobody
they gave out not in the main or co-main. So this is kind of a look, and actually now I'll remember it. Actually, we're losing like 2 fights on this fucking thing because it's all the way up there, but you guys get a pretty good look at the fight card here. Like you can see that, you know, I think we kicked it off with Grishin winning, and then we had Ronnie Lawrence, Alexis Davis, the Canadian, pulling out the huge upset from the underdog position over Sabina Mazo. Impressive, to say the least. She looked really good. Thiago Moses beating Alexander Hernandez. Huge blow to me. Caceres coming out and beating Kevin Kroom. I mean, looked pretty good. Kevin Kroom not looking too hot, but even still will look to bounce back after that. Pedro Munoz and Jimmy Rivera, that was awarded the fight of the night. I believe knockout of the night was to Ronnie Lawrence. I believe Ronnie Lawrence got knockout of the night. Pedro Munoz, Jimmy Rivera, obviously, like I said, they won fight of the night. This is the second time they will be winning fight of the night. This is obviously their rematch now. Now both of them being 1-1. So, I mean, hopefully in the future there we see some sort of a rematch in the future. But I mean, both guys are going to continue to play out their careers for right now. As far as Bueno Silva and De La Rosa, this was a huge killer. We had we had Jaron Villel, the referee, call a Montana De La Rosa was taking down Mara Bueno Silva, and Bueno Silva grabbed the fence on her way to the ground, and the ref instantly took a point, which is something you don't normally see often. You'll see a warning and stuff like that, but you can see where the ref's coming from in a sense because she is preventing the takedown directly.
Who's the ref? You remember who the ref was?
Jaron Villel.
Jaron Villel. Hey, Jaron, fuck wrong with you, dog? That happens, bro. So basically, every time I see him referee in the fight, every time I see anybody, man or woman, grab the cage to avoid, I expect him to take a point. I expect him from this point on.
That's what I mean.
When he's refereeing a fight,
yeah.
if I see anybody grabbing the cage on the way down or for any reason, I expect him to take a point, or I'm gonna fry his ass every fight. Every fight.
I mean, that's fair. That's totally because now my eye's on him, right? Like right, and like, that's the whole problem. We were talking about it when we were going live, calling the fights. Like, there's no precedent, right, for some of these referees. So you see it in the next fight, right? You see a couple fence grabs. There's no instant point. You know what I mean?
Right.
There's no instant point. You know what I mean? But I can see where in the position she's in and she's getting taken down. I mean, you can see where he made a decision, but like you said, he's got to live by that as far as his refereeing goes. So when we see something to that kind of caliber in future fights, we got to at least make sure he's kind of living up to that kind of standard because, geez, it was bad, and it definitely fucked up a lot of people's nights having a draw as that fight. You know what I mean? Like,
because that point could have been the difference maker. That point.
Oh, that point changes the entire fight, right? Because you look at it, right, in a round where she was pretty much already winning the fight, right? So if you take a point away from someone who's already losing the round, that becomes a 10-8 round, right? So then you got a 10-8 round, and then we get the fight. You know what I mean? And then, like, it was such a nail-biter of a fight. Made for kind of even more fun of a little fun to watch, but I mean, not fun when nothing hit. As far as, you know, kind of what we lost off of that card, we lost, I mean, people. That was supposed to be like a 14-fight card or something like that, or 13.
3, 4,
no, sorry, those are originals. Those are some of those that you're counting at the top were like originally supposed to be on the card. So this is like the entire cancellations of everything we got. But I'm telling you, we ended up losing about 3-4 fights last minute there again. So kind of sucks. I mean, what are you gonna do? There's certain things that, you know, it'll come through. Some nights they'll come through. It'll be like, oh, we got a 15-fight card and it's great and it works out perfectly. And some nights it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Crazy, man. Crazy. How they do things, man. 1 minute you got, and then we got fights that are new fight announcements that's coming out. You know what I mean? We got new fights coming out. We won't holler at about the fight announcements.
Oh, we will. Yeah. I was gonna kind of get into more of the. We could definitely get into some of the. Yeah, we definitely get into some of the announcements. I mean, like, so as you guys know, like UFC, it's constantly fights are getting canceled. People are getting, you know, I think one of the big fights they've officially announced, and I think I will declare it as one of the biggest fights. Like, we'll go over some of the other ones. These aren't for any of this week's cards. These are for further weeks. But we have Shane Burgos, Edson Barboza being announced. Obviously, Edson Barboza signing his big, I think, 6-fight contract extension recently. Cub Swanson taking on Giga Chikadze, which will be a great fight. I mean, I'd love to see that fight. I'm sure Cub's going to look to want to wrestle Giga, and Giga's going to want to look to stay on the outside and kick and punch, but we'll see. And then we've also got a favorite of yours, Boone, Matt Brown, coming back to take on Diego Lima. How do you feel about that? He's coming back pretty quick, too. I mean, obviously, Diego Lima coming back pretty quick, too, off of his loss to Bilal Muhammad recently, in which I picked him to win, but, you know.
He going to retire after this fight.
Didn't get it done.
He going to retire.
I think, honestly, man, if you're asking me, I think it's a close-ass fight, Matt Brown, Diego Lima. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a close fight. Like, if you show me the line, and they'll probably be underdog line money on fucking Matt Brown, I might actually be like, you know what, for his last fight or whatever, for coming off a loss.
I mean, the way and it wasn't like he got, like, embarrassed, beat up against, what's old boy name? Can't remember his name. Carlos Condit. It wasn't like he really like looked bad against Condit. Condit just showed that he got good ground game. He got better over time. Mm-hmm. And I mean, Matt Brown, he just showed his age. He looked a little lethargic. He looked slow. I mean, he looked like he was 50. He looked 50. Yeah. You know what I mean? And Condit looked like he was. I wouldn't say a prime Condit, but he looked like a guy he looked like a veteran. He looked like a savvy veteran who been in there and know what the fuck he doing all this shit. So, I mean, yeah, this fight might be closer, but I just feel like he just holding on to the glory years too much, and I think Matt Brown should. I mean, I get because you feel that fire, you feel like you can still compete with these dudes. You still rolling with these guys in the gym. Mm-hmm. He's probably rolling with dudes the same age as you and I, submitting these guys in the gym on the mat, and that gives you a sense of confidence because these dudes probably are black belts and he's still giving them a run for their money. So that makes you think, well, if I'm doing this with these guys, mm-hmm. you know, then I could still compete. So I don't knock him for that. I just honestly, the older you are, the harder, the longer it takes for you to heal. And it's just, I just don't want him to get hurt. I just don't want him to get hurt.
Same. We've talked about it. We've got into it. We don't want to see any of these guys get hurt and go through, or even come down the line, and having gone a little bit too far and having some sort of slurred speech down the line and see all the repercussions of what comes with CTE and all that kind of. We don't want to see that with any of these guys. So, I mean, I actually do think a Diego Lima fight though is a winnable fight, at least for him. Just looking at it right now, like I'm obviously watching Diego Lima, him not fighting for a while and coming back and fighting Bilal and kind of getting, I'd say kind of ran through. But I mean, at the same time, he showed some good stuff in that fight. I mean, I'll give him what it is. I mean, that's why I'm kind of like, it's not the worst fight in the world. I've seen perfectly, I mean, as far as everything else, we've got another fight. We got Rory McDonald, his first PFL fight against David Michaud's coming up. I'm not sure when that is, but I believe it's in like at least a month or two. Those are kind of just, four of the fights that are kind of, on the mind. I mean, obviously stuff's kind of popping up all over the place. Stuff's getting called out. We're going to keep going into other stuff, but I mean, there's always, fights popping up here and there. But I mean, something that's really exciting for the MMA world, and I'm not the biggest fan of the guy in the world. I'm not some sort of fanboy or anything, but it's very good for the sport. And to see a guy, I don't know if anyone's seen it. We had Israel Adesanya do a Puma commercial. Oh man, I thought it was a pretty good.
Dana didn't trip out. Because he on that Reebok shit.
Israel signed a deal with Puma like 5 months ago.
He's not tripping on.
I don't think it works like that. I think it more so works like if Israel started showing up to UFC events, decked out in Puma. Well, I mean, he's even a champion. They don't really give a fuck about what the champions wear. You know what I mean? But like, you know what I mean? Like, especially, you know what I mean? But like, you've got a guy, like if you have a guy that goes up and, comes, like they were talking about how some fighters used to have to take off Jordans and stuff like that if they were going into press conferences, you know what I mean? And stuff like if they had different shoes on that weren't Reebok, and it gets crazy, some of the Reebok stories. But I mean, as far as that goes, it's kind of more so outside of the UFC, but I think it's just great on him, man. I think he looked great up there, man. I think he looked, he did a lot of MMA fighters proud coming out there on a commercial like that and, looking good and kind of not actually, you don't see a lot of MMA fighters get kind of deals with Puma and stuff like that and get on, like we used to have, like a John Jones. Remember when he was with Nike and they had like all the Bones Nose shit, and then they dropped him, and you know what I mean? Like after all that shit went down. So I mean, it's kind of a big name, and I know the signing was like 5 months ago, but I mean, as far as see it kind of in fruition now, and we're seeing him in commercials and stuff like that. Good on him. I mean, good for the sport. I think it just keeps on making the sport better. It keeps on letting these fighters get deals outside of the UFC.
And speaking of Israel, I didn't know it was 3. I knew it was 2. In a sense, African descension champions UFC. I didn't know it was 3. What's the third one? I know it's Usman, Israel, and who's the?
Well, he's hoping Ngannou wins. That's what he's hoping for. Because the question. So we'll get into that in a second. But like, the question basically kind of ended up getting poised as, well, if you get the light heavyweight belt, what are the odds you go to heavyweight? You know what I mean? Because there was a recent, for anyone that doesn't know, there was a recent Ariel Helwani interview that was done with Israel Adesanya, kind of, leading up to the fight. And, just we'll kind of touch on it now because we're here already. Kind of talking about like what Boone was saying, the content of Africa deserving 3 UFC champions. Obviously, Ngannou being one of them. Like we were talking about Usman being the other one and him being the final. Obviously, if he wins the light heavyweight belt, though, tomorrow he'll have 2. I mean, so isn't that kind of crazy, right? I mean, I think it does, just like we're saying, talking about Israel Adesanya putting on for UFC fighters. Let's, people of African descent. I mean, you look at the UFC now, you got 4 champions. That is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? That is awesome. Like, that is awesome. Like, that is so, I mean, I wish we could even have, you know, 2 Canadian champions at the same time or something like that.
That'd be great. I mean, it'd be great either way, man. You can't knock it.
You know what I mean? You know? And I'm not, and you know what? Just to even see it, it's something that's super awesome. And like some of the other stuff that was kind of touched on in that interview, other than that kind of being brought up, because obviously that kind of got sparked off the fact that, they're asking him, you thinking about moving up to heavyweight? And he said, no, obviously Ngannou being that guy that he'd like to try and grab that belt at heavyweight. He kind of ruled out heavyweight, but as far as he was talking about obviously going back down to defend his other belt, he was talking about, saying he still likes a Darren Till fight possibly, if Darren Till keeps on winning. You know what I mean? He kind of likes Darren Till. Why does he want
to entertain a Darren Till fight though? What significance? Even if for debate's sake, Darren Till goes on like a 3 to 5 fight win streak, whatever the hell, why? Why? What does Darren Till offer?
So he kind of obviously said he's got to win, but he was like, he's like, thinks he's this Muay Thai stand-up god. He's like, I'd like to test myself against him. They're both guys that would get it on. I mean, so there was that obviously got kind of brought up, you know what I mean? That kind of whole thing. Obviously,
Kevin Holland his ass whooped.
Kevin Holland's name got brought up as well. Obviously, he said, Holland, he's got to win way more fights. Of course he does. He's kind of just making his way up. So if Kevin Holland, obviously, if he keeps winning, he'd look forward to him. And then obviously some other questions were asked, obviously, about Yoel Romero. If he wasn't surprised if, he wasn't in the UFC anymore post-fight. He was like, nope, not really surprised at all. That's kind of it. But as far as kind of the other kind of topic of the week that's kind of been a touching thing has been this whole kind of Paulo Costa. And I don't know how much you read into it. The whole Paulo Costa situation. I don't know if you got into it that much and kind of looked into it. Did you?
I took one look at one article and said, bullshit. He bullshitting. He just coming up with an excuse. That fight was how long ago? How long ago was that fight?
Fuck. I want to say 7-8 months. I don't know how long.
7-8 months ago. So you mean to tell me it took you 7-8 months to finally come? What are you? Ain't he Brazilian?
Yeah.
What is he, the Brazilian Wilder with these excuses?
I mean, that's kind of what it sounds like. I was gonna say that's a good angle to take it at. I think it's almost more so getting his fucking name. My whole angle on it is he's trying to just get his name. Like,
I think so too.
You just get your name out there, even if it's in about like if you have nothing good to say about him, you know what I mean. He's kind of looking at it as well. Even if there's something bad that people can say about me, you know what I mean. It's like if people can even be like, that's because that's what everyone's saying. That's the most ridiculous excuse I've ever heard. You know what I mean? It's fucking crazy. Like you read the actual story though, right? Like it's crazy.
No, I didn't even read the story. I just said that he said it's like for real. And he gonna do it the week of Israel's fight to get some clout off of his buzz for this fight.
Yeah, or just put his name in Israel's head, right? And then you have hopefully, right? Even if you get mentioned in a negative light in the octagon, you're still getting mentioned post-fight in the octagon or in interviews or whatever, right? So your name is getting put out there regardless. But the story kind of outlined that he was having trouble sleeping. So he figured that he would start having a couple glasses of wine to try and put himself to sleep. At what point he ended up finishing a whole bottle of wine, not falling asleep, kind of falling asleep later. Then he said he woke up and he either felt drunk or hungover. Obviously not being a guy that drinks all the time, being an athlete and stuff like that and looking like that. You don't drink all the time. I mean, I don't think the Paulo Costa has a history of doing that.
That's how I feel about Paulo. Get the motherfucking can with that bullshit. Bullshit. I was you ain't supposed to be drinking wine for one. Oh, I want to go to sleep. So I'm finna go drink some wine. Where your coaches at? Where your coaches at? Watching you do this dumb shit. Where your team at? That's supposed to be watching you while you doing this dumb shit. Somebody tell me something. Because I'm sure somebody was around him while he was doing this dumb shit. Did nobody come to forth and say, hey, bro, no, don't drink that shit. You don't need to drink wine. Somebody either told him, yeah, have a couple of shots of wine or glasses, you'll be all right. Or whether nobody around him or everybody was just letting Paulo do whatever the fuck he want to. And for that, motherfuckers get the candy. Stupid as fuck, bro. And he gonna do this shit the week of Israel's fight, bro. Clout chasing like a motherfucker, man.
The night before the fight, man, he was having muscle cramping in his leg and all. It's a long ass bullshit story that's been weaved out perfectly. He goes, "Oh, I had the muscle cramps in my leg, couldn't fall asleep, all the wine." You know what I mean? Like it gets all complicated. It's crazy. It's crazy.
Any more excuses?
I mean,
Anymore?
not from him yet. Not from him yet. We'll see what's coming out. We'll see what's coming out of the Paulo Costa camp next. I mean, here's another kind of a weird story that came about too. Obviously, cryptic kind of posts people saw. Khamzat Chimaev. He's already dropped Khamzat Chimaev announcing retirement. I mean, on Instagram, right? So everyone kind of goes wild. Everyone kind of, what the fuck's going on? I believe then he ended up talking to a couple people, Dana White being one of them. I believe someone in, I don't want to confuse, someone high up in the Chechnyan political system that he knew that convinced him to keep on going with the sport, or that's what I read on one thing. You know what I mean? It could have had a million people obviously telling him not to give up. But, you see it, right? And I think it's actually, maybe even, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was to buy himself more time. I don't know if he got hacked. I don't know why he ended up, I don't know if he just had doubts. You know what I mean? Especially with going through COVID, not feeling like himself, hip being like, having a bunch of fights pulled back now, and it kind of being like an up in the air kind of thing. When are you going to be ready to come back? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? And him kind of losing that shot. That was that shot, man. That was that roller coaster that the UFC was trying to send him on right up to the top, right? To get that number 3, right? You got that number 3 shot, you know what I mean? Like, that's pretty much a guy ranked at 15, you know what I mean? So that's a crazy kind of offer to get. So, I mean, I'm sure it'll come one day or again or something like that. They'll throw him another bone, but for now, he's just kind of got to work on getting healthy. And it was kind of a crazy story to hear, and I'm sure a lot of people were shocked at seeing that when it came out, but fuck. What do you think about that, Boone?
Look, man, I think they just need to chill out, relax, just focus on, I mean, even still not exercise a little bit. I just think the retiring part, I mean, so soon. I mean, right? Didn't he just fight?
Yeah, he fought a lot of fights. He fought like 3 fights within like a 45, 60 days, like 1 month, something like a 2 month
I mean,
span.
I just think I think he's getting, because he's feeling the effects.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I honestly look at this along the lines of you can understand as a football player, ACL or MCL injury.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, just you're going to have to take that year off.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to take that year off. You're going to have to rehab. It's going to suck. You're going to hate it. It's going to be shit. But eventually, after you done rehabbing, after you done did everything you needed to do to get yourself physically fit and mentally fit, ready to go back, you ready for training camp, ready for everything. Now, you might not be cutting on the dime like you was because you're worrying about your knee and shit like that, but I just think he just needs to just take this time off. Just take the time off, because what's going to be funny, and it ain't even going to be funny. What I think is going to happen is maybe a couple months, maybe even this time next year, he's going to start feeling better.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to start feeling a lot better. He's going to start working out, and certain issues that he was having like this time, like right now, he's not going to be having it no more. Mm-hmm. Or it might be a little to if at all, but I don't think it's going to be as severe as it is right now if he takes care of himself. And I'm sure he's a Muslim, so I'm sure he got a good diet. So I'm sure he don't smoke, none of that type of shit. So I think if he just take the time and just relax, just let his body heal, bro. Let his body go through what it's going to go through.
Has to. And
I think in about maybe 8 to 10 months, possibly even a whole year, I think he'd be ready to come back. I think he's just getting ahead of himself. I think he's just, like I said, it's like that MCL injury. You feel that knee tear. You feel that knee ligament gun. You feel I can't cut no more. I can't I can't do it like you feel that, and you just feel like I'm not the player that I once was. And I think the psyche of it is, I think it's more psychiatric than physical, in my humble opinion.
That's something that, that everyone, I mean, and it's the same time, right? When you're getting poised as this guy that's, already flying up the rankings, trying to be this, that, and the third for the UFC, right? And you're being a company guy, and you're taking fights on short notice, and you're flying up, and, and then that kind of all mentally pulls back on you too. You're like, shit, I can't do that for them, and you get kind of down on yourself. Well, if I can't do that for them, then wow, then I'm going to retire. You know what I mean? And you get kind of just ahead of yourself with your feelings. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably what it ended up happening. So I don't hate the guy for it. You know what I mean? I don't think it's any kind of bullshit. It does get people talking about him still. So it could be used as a promotional piece, obviously, if that's what he was trying to do. Do I think he was trying to play that angle? Not really. You know what I mean? I don't really assume so. But I mean, still at the same time, you've got people that'll say pretty much, like we've seen, like, was Paulo Costa actually fucking drunk before the fight? If he was, it's the stupidest thing. It really is, honestly, like, it makes people question what the fuck you're doing in the UFC. You know what I mean? Like, that's a bad look just on your career. You know what I mean? On everyone that's around you, right? Like you were saying, Boone. You know what I mean? So if you're going out to say stuff like that, and it's fake and it's promotional, and the whole corner's like, all the guys on the team are like, oh yeah, we all know that was bullshit. You know what I mean? Like, we all know, man, don't worry, it's good. It'll keep your name in people's mouths. You know what I mean? We got to keep it going somehow. If that's what they're doing to kind of sell shit, then I mean, who knows what they're doing at this point? You know what I mean? Like, it's a kind of like I wouldn't be surprised kind of thing. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be surprised. So
it was something I wanted to touch on real quick that we kind of did get a little bit away from, because I did want to speak on it, not take too much time on it, but I was surprised. Is Rose really fighting Zane? Is that really happening?
Yep.
I'm going with Zane. I just wanted to be clear with that. I'm going with Zane. But I when you sent me that fight was going to happen, I was like,
huge. And I think it's, and they've got fucking, who's she fighting? Why don't I remember who she's fighting? They got Shevchenko fighting on the that's like UFC 261. So that's obviously 260 being, Stipe and Ngannou, but then 261's like, I think a week or two after that. They're gonna have 2 fight nights in between that. I think we get a break sometimes for the first time in between then. I think that's the first sometimes around April 10th or something. The end card of March, beginning of April is the first time there's no UFC on a weekend. You know what I mean? They're fucking banging us right home. They're hitting every single angle every single weekend with fight cards. And I mean, even when you don't have a good fight card one weekend, they'll come at you and they'll stack the next one for you. You know what I mean? Or 2 cards down the line, it'll be stacked, or we'll get like a 259 that's, 3 champ fights. You know what I mean? So it's a nice thing to keep on praising the UFC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And the beauty of it is because of this past weekend, the shitty card looking at it before it, you wouldn't think it was going to be a shitty card, but the way that the card turned out, I'm going to be more clear about that. The way that the card turned out versus what we got coming up this weekend is kind of like, okay, people going to forget about it. Like, it's going to get thrown on the back burner because you got this super card very next weekend that's going to trump all that. So,
yeah.
I mean, I can't wait for it, man. I'm kind of getting excited. I'm kind of ready to talk about it right now, but still got, I mean, we could touch on Jorge and all that, but
we're going to. No. Look, let it happen. Let it happen. You're so giddy, man. You want to get? I know, man. I know. It's like Christmas. Man. It's like Christmas to be a fan. This weekend. So obviously, getting past that old Khamzat Chimaev kind of thing, he is still preparing for a return at some point. I don't know why it says January there. Obviously January not being the right month, but even still, he's still obviously preparing for his return at some point. We did touch on, obviously Rose and Weili. That's going to be, like I said, yeah, that's okay. So that's kind of the interesting part. It's Valentina Shevchenko, Jessica Andrade is the main event, and Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang being the co-main. So we were already kind of alluding to behind the scenes. I was talking. And we were kind of thinking, what are the odds at some point that they're going to try and make possibly, and I'm not saying I'm picking Weili to win. If Weili wins, what are the odds they try and make her go up and fight Shevchenko? And I'm like, well, that's honestly, that's probably correct. I'm like, yeah, that's probably very smart. Yeah, you're right. I mean, now we got people rolling up through divisions to fight each other, but I mean, the best fight the best, and that's
I think
kind of
that's going to be the new thing in the UFC is fighters going to different divisions. We seen double champions. I think that's going to be a norm. That's going to become a norm.
No, I think you're right too. I think that it's going to be just consistently something that the UFC can grow off of. They, like I said, you can have the best fight the best, regardless of what weight you fight in, even if you're close in weights. I mean, not regardless, but if you're close enough in weight, and you can make you have the ability to get there. You know, we've seen guys like Jared Cannonier fly through 3 different weight divisions. You know what I mean? So I mean, it gets crazy. Some of these guys can really, you know, manipulate their bodies and make weight at different classes and really show out too. So I mean, I think another thing I wanted to kind of pull up is it's are you in or are you out? Because we're constantly kind of hearing, you know, Khabib set meeting with Dana. Oh, they're gonna be talking about after this UFC. How many fucking UFCs? No offense, it's like I love Khabib, you know what I mean? But like, I knew, and if you guys were watching Combat Cannon, for any of you guys that are, you know, true fans, stuff like that, been here for a while, we called this time ago, and I was saying, I think Dana will keep this title. I thought it was going to be kind of put back into play after Poirier McGregor. Obviously, I was wrong, but I did allude to it before. I said, hey man, he's going to hold that title. He's going to keep Khabib trying to come back about 1,000,000 times. And sure enough, here we are, even though there's reports now coming from the other side that's like Khabib saying, I'm ready to live for myself without the sport of MMA. You know what I mean? Well, like, not without it, but you know, not as his main focus, at least. You know what I mean? So it's very kind of back and forth. I think it is truly like,
why is he still making headlines pertaining to fighting at all? I mean, Dana, why haven't you stripped him? Dana, why haven't you stripped? I haven't heard it. So do you know something I don't know, Serge?
So Khabib is cornering Makhachev. Makhachev's fighting this weekend at the card. So you could only assume that there's going to be some type of meet, or, you know, people are like, oh, Khabib's going to be there. Dana's going to be there. There's a meeting going on. It could be all just news shit. You know what I mean? But it's like, at the same point, why, like you're saying, why haven't you stripped them? You know what I mean? Right? Like, why haven't you stripped them? Because it's just, it's getting kind of crazy. We thought it would actually already be back. We thought it would be stripped and kind of done with before, you know, the whole Conor thing, before Conor's fight. But holy fuck, here we are. We're still sitting around waiting. That's becoming a thing of the past now, and we're going to continue with. It's crazy, but I mean, whatever. I mean, that's not the worst thing in the world. I mean, we could always have worse things going on. I mean, they'll hopefully get someone ready to take that fight. I mean, I know obviously there's been talks about Conor Poirier happening again, like we've talked about before, and all that kind of stuff, and that wouldn't.
I thought that was final. I thought that was.
I think it is. But that's not for a belt, right? So I don't think it is. So I mean, right? So it's like, but you can't make that fight for the belt. I don't think you can. Can you? You can if you're Dana White. I mean,
you can if you're Dana White.
Yeah,
and you strip Khabib. Which you haven't done yet, Dana, and I have never known nobody to actually come forth and say, "Oh, I retired. I ain't fighting no more." And Dana didn't say, "Okay, thank you. I appreciate you. God bless you. Appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Give me my belt back so I can fight, make my next pay-per-view event for this vacant belt, so I can have me a champion." And Khabib been retired for how long? How long?
Shots fired! Shots fired!
And I want to say close to a year.
So
close. If not a year. Close. I'd say close. I could be wrong, though. My dates could be way off. I'm all stuck in this UFC whip. So it is a little bit crazy, man. It is a little bit crazy. I don't know. But at the same time, we could beat up around that. But I think like we could talk about that every episode when he hasn't been stripped.
Damn near. I think the last probably 2 or 3 episodes we done said some shit pertaining to Dana White not stripping Khabib, who's been talking about being retired for damn near a whole year now, and they've been talking about having meetings and shit. And Khabib has came forth and said the only way he's coming out of retirement is to fight George St. Pierre at 155.
And
for real.
And that's not happening.
Shots fired! Shots fired!
Oh, it's funny, man. It's funny because it's not gonna happen. I mean, I don't think that'll happen. So it's cool though. It's cool. I think it could be, like I was kind of saying from the beginning, I at least thought he would retire for at least a year, if not more, and settle down. But this was before the year even started, before we even began this year, when I did my year breakdown. Kind of another thing we're gonna touch on. We're gonna fly over a little bit quickly. Is of course UFC women's atom weight World Grand Prix got announced from World One Championship. It's kind of interesting, you know. We've got some names we've already covered on here.
I know Tap.
So we've got Stamp Fairtex, we've got Rasohina. Obviously, we kind of covered the whole Stamp Fairtex. I didn't Tap versus Rasohina fight. I mean, that was interesting. But I mean, still, nonetheless, very interesting to see, you know, a nice little tournament. I'm a fan of a tournament, even if I catch them back on replay, you know what I mean? And it goes for a couple of months, you know what I mean? It gives you something to look forward to as far as these women fighting down the line, you know what I mean? You get to kind of, like we were talked about before, especially with the Bellator tournament. Tournaments are kind of a fun style at looking at it, you know what I mean? It's like we're fucking playing a Mortal Kombat movie or some shit like that, you know what I mean? Like we're watching a Mortal Kombat movie take place in real life with real people. But as far as another thing, we're going to kind of coast over pretty quickly. We had Victoria Lee, I believe.
Youngest MMA fighter in history. So we got to touch on it. She won the fight via rear naked choke. I mean, girl can fight. She's good. I mean, I wouldn't put her in there with none of the top girls right now, even in one championship. I wouldn't even consider that. I mean, this was only her debut. Because the thing is about these guys, these ladies and these fighters that they put up as stars and they hype them up so much, they put them in there with these fights, they beat these particular fighters or whatnot, and then all of a sudden they want to put them in there like 5-6 fights in against some top 10 contender and hope and pray that they win. And if they win, yeah, they're really, all this hype, and it's like, no, slow down. I say let the girl coast. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Give her just let her coast. Don't even put so much hype into her because her sister is fucking Angela Lee, won championships. I think she's one championship champion. So I think you need to just like let that breathe. You know what I'm saying? Let her be her. Let Victoria be Victoria. Let Angela be Angela, who is the champion. This girl is only 16 years old. And if you were sitting there thinking that a 16-year-old girl is going to be this super prolific star out the gate right now, and she hasn't really even got her feet wet, slow down. Yeah. Slow down. Let the girl get her feet wet. Let her do a couple of more things in the sport. But I do give her credit for being so young. 16 years old, bro. Youngest fighter, not female. Youngest fighter right now active. I don't know any fighter that's 15 or 14.
No, neither do I. No, neither do I. Maybe
MMA fighter. So hats off to Victoria Lee and the Lee family for even allowing her to compete at a high level at her age, because one championship, those ladies, they got some grit over there. And honestly, one championship aside from Invicta has the deepest female pool in MMA, in my opinion.
Yep, you're probably right, man. I mean, you're probably right. Either that or Invicta, I'd say. I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how they allow a 16-year-old to fight, but I mean, at the same time, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me, but it's awesome for her, man. Keep on shining, keep on growing. I mean, it's cool to see, the younger and the older, the sports get and the more developed and kind of the more built the sports are. You see people get into it younger and younger, and then, we're going to see, like we've seen with guys in the UFC too, right? Like we've seen tons of people. We've seen tons of people, Chase Hooper try and work his way up. He was at one point in time, not even like 20 years old fighting in the UFC, you know what I mean? That kind of didn't play out or hasn't played out as well as they've thought it would work. that being, you know, full grown men and shit like that. You know what I mean? Like you
Moving
gotta
them
know
too
how to
fast.
you gotta know how to do everything, right? It's like the kid doesn't know how to strike, right? He's a ground specialist, like can really submit you very long. His body's not fully developed yet either. You know what I mean? Hasn't put the muscle on yet. Hasn't really started to get, like, you're seeing it happen through time. Like I think now he might be 21 or he might have just turned 20. I don't even know, right? Like he might have been in the UFC at 19, but even still, you grow, and it's a growing kind of thing. You don't want to go up there against too good of an opponent, or you'll get exposed. You know what I mean, man? There's a lot of
Yeah,
different
it'll do a
variables.
lot to your confidence and to your mindset going into your career, man. You might start to doubt yourself when in reality you shouldn't really be doubting yourself, because you probably shouldn't have took that fight so early in your career. And I think that goes to your team and letting you know what you need in your career, the opponents you should be matched up with, you know, knowing where your fighter is mentally and physically in their particular time in their career. It's like you got to know who your fighter is. But if you get so caught up in the star status, like if you're my guy, you know what I'm saying, and they're hyping you up to be this knockout artist, and you got 2 fights, you know what I'm saying, and you just you're like, bro, this guy's a knockout artist. Every time everything he touches, they drop, blah, blah, blah. You know, Canadian power, blah, just hyping you up. And I'm just like, well, fuck it, let's put him in there with Reyes right now. Reyes coming off a fucking loss, hungry, trying to get a win. Dana, like, you lose your next fight, I'm kicking you out. And then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, man, I know what you're saying. I get it though. Like that's the whole thing, right? Like is playing up to expectation and that having, you know, like a crushing blow on a lot of these guys, right? And it kind of almost loops back to what we started the night out with the whole Cyril Gane shit, and, you know, Dana obviously kind of going out on the line and saying he wasn't very impressed. And then you have Cyril Gane coming back and saying, well, I think I was impressive. I want, you know, my name's in contention now and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I'm not even lying. Like that shit has been said. So you gotta kind of, it goes both ways, man. You're gonna see, like, you know, it's gonna be all these different types of ways, expectations on fights. We need this guy to knock this guy out. You know what I mean, right? You got, you know, maybe one guy's doesn't have the best night, like, because I think that was the kind of fight that Cyril Gane would put on regardless. You know what I mean? I thought obviously the pressure would get taken up a little bit as the fight went on, and as kind of, because I'll be honest, I thought Jairzinho would go for it a little bit more. You know what I mean? Throw
Me
more,
too.
at least to the point where, you know, he's either tired or he's putting himself in, you know, positions where Gane's going to really capitalize. You know what I mean? And then that's going to kind of make the impact from there. But as far as everything else, we kind of really didn't see it. So it kind of like we kind of saw a move, have a couple bursts. The bursts were way off, like you said, miscalculated completely, and then he kind of never went back to it. He was kind of getting kept at range. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. All night, just
So I mean,
real talk. Nobody wants to see nobody 6'2", 220 plus pounds and above just stand there and throw little pot shots at each other. Nobody wants to see that. They want to see 2 big motherfuckers get the shit knocked out of each other. That's what people want to see. That's what they want to see. When they see 2 giants, gargantuan motherfuckers, love that word, gargantuan. Rarely get to use that word in a sentence. But when they see 2 big gargantuan motherfuckers in the ring, they not looking for a boxing match. They're not even looking for a kickboxing match. They're not looking for a wrestling match. They're not looking for nothing. They looking to see somebody get knocked the fuck out.
Yeah.
Period. That's what they looking for. And when they don't get that in a fight where, in a sense, no lie, I was expecting it. I don't know if you were expecting it, but I was expecting somebody to get put to sleep.
No, same. Yeah. Especially after what we saw last weekend, right? It's only natural to think that we.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
We saw what, like 7, 8 knockouts, like back to back to back to back to back to back. And then the next week, but you know what? Comes with the territory. You got some weeks.
Yeah.
And then you got these weeks, and then we got next week, baby.
Yes. And that's a perfect little transition. We'll kind of we'll hop into it now. I mean, we could also obviously get into Jorge Masvidal thing if you want to for a sec. I think that is worth getting into for a second.
Yeah, for a second. We can touch on that for a second.
We touched on it. We touched on it last week. It's kind of like a continuing theme now. Is who is Kamaru Usman going to fight? You know what I mean? That's kind of been the topic. Jorge Masvidal was obviously teasing kind of on Twitter and stuff like that on social media that he was going to, mentioning a return. I believe it was actually. Here's the fight. I think it was actually at the Canelo fight. So he was waiting at the Canelo fight. I don't know if you saw this, Boone.
Yeah,
to give Canelo a hug after, right? And then obviously you got guys like, all these fight news outlets, and they're like, oh, Kamaru Usman. Well, there's a guy we can interview right now. He's not doing anything. We're waiting for Canelo in the change room. You know what I mean? No offense to Kamaru Usman. I mean, still. I mean, no, sorry, Masvidal. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, he gets
But I mean, at the same time, no offense to you, Masvidal, but at the same time, you got picked up on the interviews, and now he's kind of making this statement now that he's gonna come back and that it's probably gonna be against Kamaru. Obviously, then outlets then going back to Abdelaziz being Kamaru's manager, him saying Masvidal doesn't decide anything. He needs to sit down, keep working on his wrestling, and he also says when the champ makes a decision, maybe he will give them an opportunity. But for now,
what happened to Wonder Boy?
Hey, exactly.
What happened to Wonder Boy? Well, I feel what Wonder Boy said. Wonder Boy said that, okay, Usman, you done fought everybody else but me. What's up? Fight me. You done fought everybody else.
I mean, it's. Is he willing to go out on the limb and take that fight? I don't know. And as far as right now goes, I'm sure he's just trying to get his body right after the last fight and just trying to get back in the whole, working shape as Kamaru Usman does. But I mean, we'll see. We'll see what I'm looking forward.
Wonder Boy.
I'm looking forward to it. I'm just looking forward to where they're going to go in this direction with Kamaru, because obviously it's been, the topic we've talked about a lot, and it's been, that's going to be the Ultimate Fighter season. It's going to be those guys. It's going to be coaches from that weight division. You know what I mean? So we're obviously expecting Kamaru Usman to be one of them, like it was already teased. Who's going to be that other coach in the build-up to possibly a big fight for Kamaru's belt? I don't know. Who's it going to be? We don't know. We can always only just keep speculating, obviously, with it kind of bouncing around through the media. Let's shift over now, people. Let's get into it. It's here. UFC 259 this weekend. Holy shit. I am excited. I'm pumped. I'm set. Boone is freaking out. He is ready to watch these live with his people. It's going to be a good time. We are going to get down. We are going to make some money, and we're going to enjoy ourselves. And we're going to you know what? This is going to be the fight card to remember possibly for, the next couple of years. You know what I mean? It might stick out as just one of these ones that's that memorable. Obviously, we're not going to overhype it too much, but just to look at the rest of the card. And I know that's really zoomed out for any of you guys that are, kind of looking through it or, on your phones or computers. You know what I mean?
These are prelims?
That's most of the entire card. Other than the three fights. So there's the 12 fights right there. Obviously, I can read them down from the top. Islam Makhachev, Drew Dober, Thiago Santos, Alexander Rakic. That's also still main card. Dom Cruz, Casey Kenny in the prelims. Kyler Phillips, Yadong Song, Joseph Benavidez, Askar Askarov, Kai Kara France, Rodrigo Bonterno, Tim Elliott, Jordan Espinoza, Carlos Ulberg, Kennedy Nzinchukwe, Sean Brady, Jake Matthews, Livana Souza, Amanda Lemos, Uros Medic, Elon Cruz, Trevin Jones, Mario Bautista. It's a huge card that's just packed throughout, man, which is fun. And I'm not even, that's me leaving off. Like, if I just read you that, you might even say, oh, that's the card right there, without me even telling you what the three champ fights are. You know what I mean? The three main fights. So, I mean, it's just one of these cards that's it's stacked to the gills, and it's something that we can always appreciate the UFC setting something like this up for us, man. It is nice. It is nice. It's a nice thing to be able to sit and just even look at, even just with it here, you know what I mean, in all of its glory. Just like, even, you know what I mean, without anything canceled or anything. You know what I mean? You just sit here and you just look at it, and you're like, it's 15 fights of glory. You know what I mean? Obviously, you see the three main fights. and I'm gonna get in and we're gonna break those down like we always do. Like you just even like it's.
Three championship super fights in one night. How do you not get up for this?
Exactly.
Not one, not two, three championship super fights in one night. Any one of these fights could headline a card by itself. By itself.
Yeah.
Israel's fight could headline his own event.
Absolutely.
Nunes could headline her own event.
Yep.
Yan Sterling headline their own event.
Yep.
But the fact we are getting all three plus a stacked prelim card, we getting all three of these fights in one night, back to back to back to back. Man,
it's worth clearing your plans out on Saturday night, people. It's definitely worth clearing.
Saturday night, man. Combat Cannon Special Edition. We covering it.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
Tune in, bro.
We will be here.
We will be here.
People, I also need you to do one thing for me. Hit the subscribe button on my channel. We're going to keep pushing those up. We're trying to get this over 100 by the end of this big card, especially this being kind of like the Super Bowl for us. You know what I mean? This is a huge card. This is a huge card.
Huge.
Yeah.
We ain't even started talking about it. We just talking about how big it is.
Exactly.
We ain't
like
even went in and told you nothing about it. We ain't said nothing about nobody yet. I'm just letting you know that this card, and by the way, I'm finna piss a couple people off before this is over. But anyway, still, this is a hell of a card. Hats off to Dana White, and not just hats off to Dana White, because we give too much credit to Dana White for, yes, he is the man that is putting the fights on and all that, but give credit to these goddamn fighters that are actually willing to step up in there and do these cards and fight these fights, man. We got to give these fighters the credit that they deserve, because Dana White can't put on the show without these motherfuckers right here. Without them, Dana can't do shit. So let's give these fighters the credit for taking the fights on short notice, even when Dana being an asshole, basically telling them if they don't take these fights, they ain't going to get no opportunities, and they still take these damn fights. Let's give these fighters the credit that they deserve, because at the end of the day, Dana, without these fighters, UFC wouldn't be shit. Yep, you need these type of fights. You got to have these type of caliber fighters to be able to put on these type of fights, man. So hats off to these fighters, man, for stepping in there and making this shit happen, man. For real.
Man, it's crazy, man. Like you just have to have a roster of guys that are all willing to come out, not even for the good cards, but just have their name in the hat to be put, to be mixed around. You know what I mean? We got all these cards every single weekend. Obviously, the UFC is trying to, put their pieces where they want them, right? So you can get a card like this stacked up. It is a big testament to the guys that they have and the people that they have in the UFC that are getting these fighters, the fighters that they have themselves that are, able to constantly stay ready for these types of fights, especially in this kind of time. We're gonna get into breaking this first champ fight down.
Ain't even broke it down yet.
We could stare at it, like I said, all night. It's one of those cards you could just stare at and you could just go and sit back in appreciation the entire night. But as far as this first fight goes, we got a bantamweight championship bout at 135 pounds between Petr Yan, 5'7" with a 67-inch reach, taking on Aljamain Sterling, 5'7" with a 71-inch reach. Petr Yan 7-0 in the UFC with a 15-1 MMA record, 7 knockouts, 1 sub. Aljamain Sterling 11-3 in the UFC with a 19-3 MMA record, 2 knockouts, 8 subs. Petr Yan, I think most of you guys know the way he claimed his championship belt was obviously in kind of a more, when you look at the run and its fluidity and what it is as a whole and his kind of run up to getting the belt, it's one that people kind of question, and they, obviously a vacant belt for the bantamweight championship in which Jose Aldo came down from previously fighting at 145 to then take on Petr Yan for that belt. And I mean, it's kind of funny because the last time that Petr Yan, technically you could call it a title fight, right? The last time Petr Yan fought was against Jose Aldo, and it was also to kick off 3 title fights. So I mean, that is kind of funny as well. He's been kind of the kickoff guy for these title fights. Of course, the belt obviously being up in the air at that point in the Jose Aldo fight. But in that Jose Aldo fight, I mean, we saw him, kind of actually kind of get worked on, I'd say, in the first round. I'd say Jose Aldo ended up winning the first round, looking well, landing hard leg kicks, looking for leg kicks. Look at the time Yan the entire time. But the one thing that Yan does have and possesses is that power. You know what I mean? And he starts landing that power on Aldo already in the first round. And as he's able to kind of get a partial trip takedown, but right before the end of the round, he's able to just posture up over Aldo, land one good shot, a ripping shot, a straight right or a straight left, right down to Jose Aldo's gut, and you could tell Jose Aldo was hurt. He covered up, and you went, oh my God, if there was 15 more seconds left in the round, the fight would be over. You know what I mean? Like that's how hurt Aldo was. You could tell he totally covered up. His corner acknowledged it right off the bat. I mean, that was kind of almost at one point the turning point in that fight, you could say, because then you see Petr Yan kind of with his power, with that boxing background, which he kind of came from, which he originated from, start to kind of put that on notice. And he starts kind of tagging up Jose Aldo throughout the rest of the fight. And he's mixing in kind of those trips and those takedowns. You know what I mean? And he's having a lot of success on Jose Aldo, even though Jose Aldo is putting up a hard fight. It's somewhat close, but the numbers are for Yan, and he is landing the more meaningful shots. You can tell he's hurting Aldo, and he hurts a lot of these guys that he fights with his hands. Like his hands are heavy. You know what I mean? And that's not to say his wrestling isn't good either, or his kicks aren't good, because everything is pretty well-rounded in a guy like Petr Yan, and that's what makes him so dangerous. But you see later on throughout that fight, he's kind of able to start, lead the dance a little bit more in the fourth, really just start coming forward. He ended up getting a trip takedown, kind of like what he was trying to do throughout the fight. He then ended up dropping Aldo with a 1-2 to start the fifth round. Ended up posturing up and pretty much just raining down shots hard on Aldo. I mean, it was a good fight from Jose Aldo, obviously, the King of Rio. He always looks to impress in his fights, and he's a hell of a fighter, but just was not able to pull that out against Petr Yan. Petr Yan just being a little bit too crafty, a little bit too heavy hitting, a guy who had already trained with Jose Aldo past years ago. So, I mean, this is a guy you've been watching throughout your entire career. But, I mean, as far as when you go back another fight and you look at the Uriah Faber fight, that's a knockout win. Okay, but then you go, okay, Uriah Faber was your fight right before you fought Jose Aldo? Yeah, it is a little bit suspect. Uriah Faber, obviously, at the time being 40 years old at the point of that fight. He's about 41 now. And in that fight, you just saw the difference in hand speed between both guys. And you saw that obviously when Petr Yan landed, like I said, he does land with significant shots. And he's got the patience to, be able to kind of walk you down without taking shots. Even though he did, get clipped a couple times from Faber, but nothing significant, nothing that rocked him. Faber obviously trying to have most of his success in the clinch, but Yan just looking a little bit too strong. His takedown defense just too strong, and then he pretty much ended up he was pretty much able to just ended up dropping a 1-2-1 on Faber. Faber ended up working back up, kind of showing him that he's still in the fight, kind of smiling at him, and then ended up stopping him shortly after. I mean, it's pretty much. You look at that fight and you go, okay, Faber, obviously I think he had just come off the knockout win, and he was just kind of trying to have this final resurgence in his career at the time. But, I mean, even still, like, you start breaking that kind of stuff down and you go, okay, maybe. You look at a guy like Aljamain Sterling, on the other hand. He's coming off the win over Corey Sandhagen, the submission win. Fast fight. We saw him pretty much walk down Corey Sandhagen within a minute, 30 seconds, minute 45. He had gotten that backpack, that standing backpack, put in the body triangle, and then began looking for the RNC, falling to the ground and really looking to try and get Sandhagen in that RNC, and pretty much ended up finishing that fight a minute 30 in. As far as the Munoz fight, he was able to pretty much keep his range, land some kicks, body kicks up the middle, ended up switching some stances, moving out a lot in that fight. I mean, a guy in Aljamain Sterling, he might not necessarily have knockout one-touch power that puts you down and out, but he does have unorthodoxy with his movement and his build. He's a lot longer of a guy, even though him and Yan being the same height. Obviously, Sterling having the reach advantage by about 4 inches. Even still, it's the length of Aljo's body. You know what I mean? He's got like these long legs. He's very unorthodox with his striking, throws from very weird angles, sets up a lot of his shots, very weird kind of shots you wouldn't expect to be setup shots. He uses those as setup shots, like kicks and stuff like that. I think when you see a guy like Aljamain Sterling fight, and even in kind of like the Munoz fight, you know, you see him against a guy in Munoz who's a pretty decent striker himself. We just saw him come off the win against Jimmy Rivera. And in that fight, obviously, I mean, he would just kind of lead Munoz into power shots throughout. And it would almost look effortless from a guy like Sterling. He's just so unorthodox and so weird with his movements. You'd almost think he's rocked sometimes, you know what I mean, when he gets hit, because he's moving around a little bit different. You know what I mean? Of course, Aljamain Sterling does come from a wrestling background, and he does have that jiu-jitsu skill to go with it, obviously, coming from the Matt Serra camp. I mean, we've seen him put that into play, like in the Corey Sandhagen fight, and it's really something that we've seen kind of throughout his career. He's able to kind of build on, and we've kind of seen Aljamain Sterling as one of these guys who's been in the UFC for a long time. I think that this fight, you know, close fight to call. I think it's been in the, you know, we've seen it. It's been in the cards already. It was supposed to be, you know, obviously we're supposed to see this fight a little bit a while ago, but it doesn't really matter. We're seeing Petr Yan once again kick off this triple header championship. I mean, it's a real test to see where Yan stands atop the division in my eyes. I think if he's able to come out of this fight victorious, especially in the way in which he gets it done, which would probably be by knockout, by finish in some type of way, or by some sort of grueling decision for Petr Yan, I think we've seen him, you know, we've seen him topple the bantamweight king, Jose Aldo. We've seen him, you know, obviously in that fight, you kind of look around and you go, well, why was Sterling not given that shot for the belt? Obviously things happen. You know, I think that he was waiting in the wings for it, and he was. But obviously, shortly after that fight happening, we've seen Aljamain Sterling, you know, throughout his career, fighting top tier opponents in the UFC. The height and reach, the unorthodoxy of Sterling, I think it's going to present problems. I think he's going to look to score from different opportune positions. I'm assuming he's going to try and walk down the shorter, smaller man into his punches, kind of similar to what he did with Munoz, especially if this ends up being a striking battle. But we've already heard kind of Sterling kind of, hint at some takedowns, and like, it's only going to take one takedown for me to be able to kind of wrap you up in something that you can't get out of, and I will choke you out. So he has been hinting at that, but I do think, I kind of suspect Sterling, you know, he's going to move throughout the first, maybe probably looking to keep outside and then shooting for the TD when he sees the opportune time, when he sees the commitment of Petr Yan. I think it's Aljo presenting more problems if it hits the mat due to his crafty ability. I think the long limbs, like kind of like what I was saying before, the ability to wrap, backpack Yan at some points in time. I think, like I said, Yan being a very impressive boxer, striker, he leaves his opponents wondering what just hit them, because, you know, they're so hard. The shots do damage. He sets them up well. He's not someone that's just throwing power bombs. You know what I mean? I think Aljo's going to have to avoid that power, make Yan push through into striking range, use his kicks. I think it's a hard fight to call through and through. I think Aljamain's been, you know, he's been one of these guys hungry for a title shot and not just given that shot regardless of the names he's beaten. I think I think people have been avoiding Aljo. I don't think people want to fight him coming up in the UFC. And, you know, there's good reason behind it. And now we're seeing him get that shot. We're seeing him progress in his career. I don't see him squandering this opportunity. I think that what he's been giving here, I think given and putting forth here, I think we're going to see that the champion's been right in front of us the whole time. I think that Aljamain Sterling will win this fight. How he wins this fight, I'm not sure.
Submission. That's how he gonna win the fight. This fight is not going 5 rounds. He's going to submit Petr Yan in the 3rd round. Yeah, I said it. He's going to submit Petr Yan in the 3rd round. All right. He's going to have to figure Petr Yan out. It's not going to be easy when Petr Yan is fresh. He's going to be too sharp. He's going to be too technical. You ain't going to want to see him from the shoulders or off the back. He's going to have to use awkward movement, and it's going to frustrate Petr. Because Peter's going to want him to – he's going to be on this Rotang shit. Like, stand right here, fight me. And going to move, be slick, and all that. And I think once Petr Yan starts to get mentally disrupted, which you'll start to see in the later first round, early second round, you start to see him break down mentally because he's gonna start to over engage because he's not able to hit Aljo clean. And then once Petr Yan starts to over engage, then that's when Aljo is gonna get to that wrestling and it's gonna go to the ground. And then it's going to be that ground and pound little that's when it's going to start to change and go Aljo's way. And Peter is still going to be fresh, still going to have that energy, still not going to want to lose. He's still going to he's going to be getting out of shit here or there. But once that third round hit and Aljo is still keeping that wrestling pressure, that movement, frustrating Peter over time, I just think it's just going to break him down. And I think he's just going to get him in that RNC. And the new.
I love it.
And the new.
I'm excited for it, people. You hear it. We're both on Aljamain Sterling. That's the train we're riding this weekend, people. And the new. As far as that first champ fight goes, I don't know about this second one. I know this second one's definitely it's going to be another talking point for us too. But
yeah, we both gonna have to go in on the breakdown on this one because I'm finna piss people off, man.
I mean, you do it. I'll fly through this one. This one I'll fly through. Honestly. Featherweight championship, 145 pounds. Amanda Nunes, 5'8" with a 69-inch reach, taking on Megan Anderson, 6 foot with a 72-inch reach. It's a big woman for 145 pounds. 13-1 in the UFC, Amanda Nunes, with a 20-4 MMA record, 13 knockouts, 3 submissions. Megan Anderson, 3-2 in the UFC with 11-4 MMA record, 6 knockouts, 3 submissions. So, Amanda Nunes is coming off a UD win over Felicia Spencer, in which, she pretty much was landing some good right hands throughout the fight. Felicia Spencer ended up hanging in there a lot, taking a lot of those strikes. I don't think Amanda Nunes was, hungry looking to really finish her. But, at the same time, a lot of good takedowns, a lot of good groundwork against Felicia Spencer, who's, been known to have a lot of success on the ground. So, Amanda Nunes showed a lot of strength, size throughout that fight. Was pretty much able to beat her up throughout it, getting the UD win. That was a rather easy fight for Amanda Nunes. As far as the Jermaine Durandamine fight, the number 2, it's the second time they fought. They have fought once before prior in their careers in the UFC as well. Amanda winning both of them. Amanda winning the first fight though in a quick, about a 2-minute elbow barrage on the ground, winning that fight. But as far as the second fight goes, that was a UD win for Amanda Nunes. She was pretty much able to start that fight, landing the overhand right, start imposing some of those takedowns, and looking for, some different submissions in transition throughout. Her offensive-oriented grappling throughout that fight, she was able to get takedowns at pretty much will and work from a lot of those different positions. So we've seen that a lot in her last 2 fights. We've seen the Amanda Nunes who's, able to wrestle with you, especially against top female fighters. Like JDR is, I don't think she's a slouch, in my opinion at least. I don't think JDR is much of a slouch, but against some top level fighters, we've, been seeing her impose a little bit more wrestling. Obviously, JDR being one of these women that's very good on the hands and feet. Felicia Spencer being one of these women that's actually very good at grappling. Obviously, we saw that, if you go back even further, you saw the Holly Holm fight, and you saw that sweet first round knockout, right? And then you go even back further than that, and that's when Chris Cyborg was still there, and that was obviously the highlight I had in my in the intro, and that will be played in the outro as well. Just absolute punch out, rock'em sock'em robot fights. Not as much the Holly Holm fight, but the Chris Cyborg fight at least. So we've kind of seen we've kind of seen a little bit of what we need. Like we know what Amanda Nunes brings, and she is the double champ. She is one of the women's UFC GOATs for a reason. You know what I mean? I think that's without question. You know what I mean? But as far as Megan Anderson, on the other hand, here, she is coming up to look to dethrone Amanda Nunes at 145. And we've got Megan Anderson coming off of, some 2 impressive first round finishes. So, that in the way that the 145 division is set up right now, that will get your name put into that contention slot to fight Amanda Nunes for sure. Especially fighting, she came out, Norma Dumont had a pretty good record in the UFC. She came out and pretty much, ended up getting walked down She ended up getting clinched by Dumont pretty quickly. Dumont was probably going to look to, impose some sort of grappling game, look to try and take her down a little bit, but ended up, preventing the position and then dropping her with a beautiful right hand, finishing the fight. I saw it. That was also played in the intro. Man, that just grazed her perfectly, put her lights out right away. As far as the Zerfarin DeSantos fight, that was a submission win fight. That name not being as, prominent, people don't really know who she is, but even still, nonetheless, a pretty good fighter, as far as being in the featherweight division of 145. I mean, she was pretty much getting pressed with some straight punches right off the bat, looking to close the distance. It was a fight in which I'm sure Anderson instantly was like, whoa, got the body lock, ended up trying to get the back body lock takedown. She looked to pass pretty quickly. She looked to get full mount, and then, pretty much we see that Megan Anderson does have heavy pressure. Is it going to be, the strength level in comparison to a girl like Amanda Nunes? I'm not sure. Could definitely be because she does look heavy when she's on top, and she actually does have some pretty good little transitions. She was able to catch Farron during her transition, isolate the arm, and throw up the triangle, getting the sub. I think a lot of improvement in Megan Anderson's game needs to be shown against Amanda Nunes, particularly her shot selection when she closes the distance or Nunes closes distance on her. I think Nunes is probably going to look to mix in her strikes with kicks and possibly even some takedowns, looking to wear out the taller, longer opponent. Anderson will probably want to use the distance and size, try and win the exchanges from the outside and move. I think that the strength of Nunes will be a little bit too much for Anderson. I do think she will get possibly finished on the ground. I believe she's actually going to get finished on the ground in the mount. Not by a submission, but just by strikes. At some point in time. I'm picking Amanda Nunes to win.
Let's go, Megan. Let's go, Megan. Let's go, Megan. I'm going with Mrs. Anderson. That's who I'm going with. I'm going with Megan Anderson, and here's why. Now, I've looked at mostly all of Amanda Nunes' losses. Mm-hmm. All of her losses, hear me out, all her losses come from girls who are able to stand there with her, not go blow for blow and shit, no, but they're able to deal with her initial onslaught. They're able to mummify her punch output, and they're able to deal with her punching power, meaning that they got a chin, got a beard on them. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's what Kat Zingano showed, and that dumb shit they said, I don't know who said it, I forgot who said it, when Nunes caught Kat, and she caught her, and they thought that, they was like, she showed heart. No, it wasn't no heart. The girl got a chin. She got a beard. All right, she could take some shit. It wasn't no heart. Okay, bitch, I got you. All right, that was nice. Okay, let's keep this party going. Mm-hmm. So it's a difference between somebody having a great chin and showing heart. You know what I'm saying? Heart is when you could tell they just defeated. And yet and still that's hard. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But anyway, I think Megan, now what her greatest strength in this fight will be her greatest weakness. Come back and quote me on that. Yeah. Because her length, using her body, wearing Amanda Nunes down, I think that could play to her advantage. What it will play to her disadvantage is she hella long. She can get her arm easy and can hold on to her leg and keep her down in certain ways. You know what I mean? She might not be she might not be able to get away from you as easy as a smaller opponent would be. Versus with Megan being so fucking long. I mean, she's 6 fucking feet, bro. Yeah, it's big bitch. Yeah. So anyway, I think her size will work to her advantage, but also work to her detriment. And I think she's going to smother Nunes because Nunes is not going to be able to go range for range. Mm-hmm. This is the biggest woman Nunes has ever fought in her whole career. She's never fought no girl this tall, this long before. Yep. So Nunes is gonna have to get in. Now, if Megan ain't got no beard, it's over. First round. Round 1 is over. Mm-hmm. But if Megan, which I do believe, I think, and I'm gonna get to another point in a second too. Yep. if Megan is as hungry as I think she is, she's going to pose more of a threat in this fight than people are giving her credit for. And with Amanda Nunes being a new dad now that she's, a parent and all the shit, having this baby and all that, and she's more focused on being the dad and shit like that, I think that's taken away from her training and in preparation and focus. Because I'm a parent too. And especially when you're a new parent, that baby sleep, certain things that you're able to do that you're used to doing, that baby takes that away from you now. You know what I mean? So certain things she's able to be more attentive to, she won't be able to be as attentive to it because she got to worry about this baby. And also, I'm looking at her. She looking a little pudgy, Serge. She looking a little thick. She look like she eating too good over there. So
she makes
I think
weight. Don't start saying she might miss weight.
The fortune, the new being a new parent, all those things. And mind you, Nicole, and what makes it fucked up is they're all good things. Fame, fortune, being a new parent, all that. Those are all great things. But when you are a fighter, and I'm gonna tell y'all right now, as a fighter, you're selfish. Everything is about you. Everything is about you. So anything that takes you away from that is a distraction. Good or bad or ugly, it's a distraction. And I think now being the parent and all the fame and fortune and all that, I think it's all a distraction. And Megan, she don't got that. She got tunnel vision. It's like all it is Nunes. That's it. This is it. And it's just, and I think that's all going to play up. It's going to show up in the fight. I'm going with the underdog. I'm going with Megan Anderson, and I'm going with her. And I'm going with her. Third round stoppage or submission. It can't go the distance. It has to be a stoppage for Megan.
So you don't think it'll even go into championship rounds?
Nope. Maybe the fourth. But okay. I think Amanda Nunes don't got the gas. I think she runs. I think once you get by her, I've watched her. I've literally watched not just the fights that she lost, but I watched the fights where girls give her trouble. And when she's in trouble, it's because she run out of gas. And all the fights that she's lost is when she's either been full mounted, or girls constantly in half guard most of the time, and they take her back. She's good for giving her back up. So and Megan is not the girl with the length and all that. She too big to give you. You don't want to give her that much. I'm not looking at her the wrong way, because if Nunes was the Nunes of old, then I'd be looking at her like, hey, Nunes gonna go in there, she's gonna put the bitch to sleep. It is what it is. It's gonna be that. But Nunes, people don't understand the psyche of what's going on with Nunes. She's a parent. She got a brand new baby. All right, brand new. That takes time away from training, focusing on the fight. All right. She's Amanda Nunes, double champion, fame, fortune. She not hungry no more. She don't got to worry about what she gonna eat, where she gonna sleep, where her family go. She don't got to worry about none of that. She's not hungry. Megan hungry. It's difference, man.
You think it's a sneaky kind of hunger thing? I like it. I like it though. I like that. If that's your angle on it, if that's the angle you're playing on, I like it. I gotta respect it. You know what I mean? I gotta respect the angle. Do I think it's possible? Yes. Do I think it would happen?
No.
I don't know if listen, I just don't know. Like you see these women get kind of pushed through the line, especially at the 145 pound thing. I kind of made a comment about it. It's not really too filled up yet. You know what I mean? They don't really have all these different talent pools that they can kind of grab from at 145 and let Amanda in the fight. And we've got this girl who's, you know what I mean? Like, so you've kind of already seen through Megan Anderson's career, right? Like, she lost to Felicia Spencer, who then Felicia Spencer went on. I'm sure if Megan had won the fight then, to get that fight with Amanda, you know what I mean? And she lost in that, like, quick loss, first round submit, like rear naked choke from Felicia. Obviously, like I said, Felicia being one of these girls that's very good on the ground. You know what I mean? Then you have the next two fights for Amanda kind of going through it, and she's kind of even wrestling more, especially taking, You know, Amanda on the other hand, taking the Felicia Spencer fight and wrestling with her majority of the fight. You know what I mean? And kind of out muscling her, just looking a lot bigger, a lot stronger, looking very dominant in that fight. So I mean, at the same time, is it possible that Megan Anderson is like, you know, she's definitely gotten better, like we saw in the Zara Farn fight, like she did. She choked her out. She looked great, like moved well on the ground. Is it possible that, you know, Megan Anderson's improved her ground game and is going to have the ability to work on Nunes like that? I don't really think so. Is it possible though? Sure, right? Like people are all talking about the strength of Megan Anderson. You know what I mean? Her being this big girl, and obviously, like, you know, she spars with the men. You know, moves around with a lot of the guys and stuff like that. But at the same time, it's is she gonna have what it takes to beat a girl like Amanda Nunes? She's gonna have to come in there with a dynamite game plan. You know what I mean? Dynamite, like whatever it is. Like, I hope she goes for it 100%, whatever that game plan is. You know what I mean? But it's gonna have to be a dynamite game plan to knock Amanda Nunes off of her off the tower. I think that Amanda Nunes just brings a little bit too much for Megan Anderson at this point. A little bit too much. Like, especially we see her get, you know, outpointed, touched up a little bit by Holly Holm. It's like, if you get touched by those shots from Amanda Nunes, it might be night. Like, depends what kind of fight you want with her. You know what I mean? Is there the whole question of, you know, how hungry are you? Man, I think at this point in Amanda Nunes' career, she's just continuing to etch names and etch her legacy in the record books. And I think that, you know what, it can go both ways, like you're saying, Boone, like obviously, you know, parenthood and stuff like that. I think it may have even motivated her more. Of course, we're going to kind of get into that for the next fight as well. We've seen Jan Blachowicz become a father since his last fight as well. And he's obviously made the joke that, you know, when you become a father in Poland, you punch 2 times harder. You know what I mean? So he's like, you know what I mean? I think there's, you know, you're fighting for more at a certain point. You know what I mean? Does that motivate some people more? Can it be a negative thing to certain people? Of course it can be. You know what I mean? It's all about how you're going to take it as a fighter. I think that Amanda Nunes is going to end up coming through with this one, but I got no problem with putting a couple small shekels on Megan Anderson, especially on your little round 3, round 4, just to see if you don't
win. Pray Megan don't win. Because if Megan wins, oh, I'm going to talk so much shit.
I'm ready. That's what we do, man. That's what we do. It's, man, I think we'll move on for that fight. We'll get into the creme de la creme, the main event, and then we'll let you guys kind of ask some questions and we'll shoot the shit for a minute. But this is, people, holy shit. Are we seeing it correctly? Are we finally seeing it happen? Are we seeing another, like we were talking about? Is it going to become kind of a normal thing for the UFC to do these you know, these cards where you've got, have fighters and kind of promote this whole double champ lifestyle where you can, you know, pop through different divisions, move up, move down. Of course, if you're able to, right? Like I was saying, but if that's kind of where the UFC's going, they're going to be able to sell it hard because it's always exciting when you see 2 belts listed. You know what I mean? You got one guy moving up from 185 pounds to take on the champion from 205 pounds. Anytime you see guys, the best fighting the best, it's always something that you can go on and look back at. You know what I mean? It's something that, you know, it's going to make you stop, regardless if you're a fan of the sport. You're going to start going, oh shit, hey, there's that champ fighting that champ. Oh, must be crazy. But yeah, this is a light heavyweight championship. So obviously we have Israel Adesanya moving up, taking on Jan Blachowicz. Israel Adesanya being 6'4" with an 80-inch reach, taking on Jan Blachowicz, the light heavyweight champion, the Polish power, 6'2" with a 78-inch reach. Jan Blachowicz, 10-4 in the UFC with a 27-8 record, 8 knockouts, 9 submissions. Israel Adesanya, 9-0 in the UFC with a 20-0 MMA record, 15 knockouts, no submissions. As far as Jan Blachowicz, we'll start with him. He's coming off the Dom Reyes knockout win. I mean, in that fight, kind of started slow. He kind of starts hacking with this low leg kick. And I think a very big prominent piece throughout that fight was that not only the leg kick that he was landing, but he would mix that up with that body kick. And that body kick, you could see it already every time he would land that and he would pair it with the right hand. You could just see the swelling on the side of Reyes' body. It was deep, dark bruising already on his ribs. So throughout that fight, you could already see him, coming away with some, favorable advantages in those opening exchanges, just already causing that kind of bruising. And it's going, whoa, those must hurt. You know what I mean? If he keeps landing that kick, especially in combo with punches, something's going to get through at one point. Reyes ended up coming out a little bit more aggressive throughout that second round, and he was able to, Blachowicz was able to start landing some hard combos and have some of those, pretty significant strikes where he was able to lay into them a little bit more. And then, you know what? He ended up just always, after most of his combos, he would end up, finishing with that left, and it would always, do a very good job at landing. As far as the end of that fight, Reyes ended up coming to the pocket, pretty much to exchange, getting clipped with the left hook as both men were in the pocket, and it just ended up crumpling him. He was out. Obviously, you guys saw that in my in the intro as well. As far as Corey Anderson, now that was another win, which was obviously pretty significant for Jan Blachowicz. Him coming up and knocking out Corey Anderson, the wrestler, the guy who would be obviously look to mitigate all that kind of Polish power by taking him to the ground. He pretty much you had Corey Anderson coming out pressing. They were both trading their jabs pretty well, and then he pretty much landed a huge right hand as Anderson came in and slept him perfectly. And then you look back even further, he ended up beating Jacare Souza on a split decision. And then kind of his coming out party fight, obviously on the Jones-Santos card too as well, because of the fact that before the Luke Rockhold fight, he had fought Thiago Santos. The winner of that fight would have gone on to fight John Jones, and in the following UFC, the main card, you could see he was on that card against Luke Rockhold, as many of you guys remember, in which he ended up clipping Luke Rockhold and just sending him out with the Polish power as well in round 2. So I mean, that's kind of all where it comes from Jan Blachowicz. He's this guy who, and it's not only that he's got this power, he does have the ability to wrestle, to grapple. He's got a black belt. He's able to make good decisions when he's in clinch work. I believe he's got a judo black belt as well. And it just shows. It just shows through a lot of these exchanges, through a lot of the fights that he's had. He's avenged a lot of his losses. Some of the only losses, him not having avenged, being Gustafsson and Santos. Obviously, I'm sure Santos will be down the line. I'm sure at one point in time, if anything happens, I'm sure we may even see a rematch between those two guys. But as far as Israel Adesanya, on the other hand, he's coming off of, as most of us remember, the knockout win over Paulo Costa, in which pretty much he was hammering that lead leg, just leading with the strong leg kicks, trying to just hammer that lead leg. You could see the swelling throughout on the outside of that lead leg. Just for Costa, it was just getting kind of gross. I mean, he was even eating some leg kicks as well. I mean, he would get pressed at certain points. Costa landed a couple little shots, a shot to the body. Nothing very significant. It was the movement of Israel Adesanya, which he constantly displays. Him being this style bender, him having the ability to swap styles, him having the ability to swap stances, find openings, put out shots that, you may not see the average person putting out, especially at 185 and now at light heavyweight, which I'm sure, because he's talked about bringing the same style he brings to 185 right up into light heavyweight. So I'm sure we're going to see this same type of Israel Adesanya that's constantly moving, that's trying to set traps, trying to play you into certain things. As far as the Yoel Romero fight, that was a UD win. I'm sure a lot of people don't even want to discuss that fight that much. That being a fight in which, man, Yoel Romero fight, I'm sure we all look back on that. We go, okay, that was a little bit more of a sleeper. Nothing really ended up happening. And, like we were talking about earlier, Israel Adesanya isn't really surprised with Yoel Romero apparently being cut post-fight. So, I mean, it was kind of a fight of Romero sitting with that high guard, coming at Adesanya with a couple little bursts. Adesanya just moving around looking for openings, landing a couple little good shots. I mean, there wasn't many, counters from Yoel throughout the fighter. And, he ended up just pretty much getting hammered with the same leg kick that Israel Adesanya's looked to use as a weapon. And, you saw throughout that fight, Yoel being one of these guys that didn't really even implement the wrestling, what we thought he was going to kind of do or bring into that fight. But at the same time, you get what you get, and sometimes that's what happens in some of these types of fights. As far as, the way I mean, when you chop this fight up, I think it's one that people all over the world, they're not only going to tune into it to see, what's going on, but they're going to talk about it. They've been talking about it in weeks and months to come leading up to this fight. People have been talking about it. Fight fans have been talking about it. And now finally it's upon us. I think you have the middleweight champion, someone who was yet to be outclassed throughout his pro career in MMA, not having even been defeated yet, 20-0, like we've talked about. The only time he has lost by finish is to Alex Pereira in a kickboxing bout, which we've talked about on the Canon, and I've showed on the Canon before as well. I mean, Jan, on the other hand, is a testament to hard work and ability to bounce back, having avenged losses to Anderson, like I was talking about. This is a guy who, like I said, was one shot away from John Jones and had to take it away from him by hungry Thiago Santos. Since then, 4 fights in a row on a win streak, and a shot at being the best of what the UFC has to offer is at stake. I mean, obviously, you have a guy coming up to fight you at 205, and he's a champion. It's a huge fight for you. You know what I mean? That's not only for Adesanya is that the ability for him to test his mettle, it's an ability for Jan Blachowicz to just say, hey, everybody, hey, Polish power. You know what I mean? Like you gotta respect everybody somewhat equally, regardless if it's the guy that's coming up or it's the guy that's defending that. Being the bigger guy defending his strap. You know what I mean? There's, some would say, more pressure on Blachowicz. I think that Blachowicz in this fight, I think that he ends up winning the fight by being able to hurt Israel Adesanya, slow him down with things like leg kicks, body work. And I do see there being a little bit of an advantage to this fight being in the apex. You know what I mean? Obviously, it's a little bit, it's like, 2 feet off each side, 2.5 feet off each side. The fighters say it's a huge difference. I mean, it makes a huge difference when you're watching the fights, I think, a little bit, as far as the amount of room that these fighters have to circle with and stuff like that before being cut off and stuff like that. I mean, I just think that it's a hard fight to chop up between these two guys. I think that obviously I'd be a fool not to look at Israel Adesanya and think that, him bringing this, him sitting at a light heavyweight kind of, a weight range, him having the frame to definitely fight at light heavyweight, him having the power arguably to fight at light heavyweight as well. I mean, it's Israel Adesanya. He's one of the best fighters in the world for a reason. He provides this kind of different insight on how fighting takes place in his world. You know what I mean? It's kind of this different kind of thing we see from him. And I mean, I think in this fight, I think it's going to be a little bit more of an aggressive paced fight. I think Jan Blachowicz will look to finish. If you're asking me what I want to happen, I think Israel Adesanya will win. What I want to happen is I would like Jan Blachowicz to create a scrap in there.
Well, I'm going with what you want to do. I'm going to say what you want to say, because that's who I'm going with. I'm going with Yan. Here's why. The ring, I don't think Israel could hurt him with his hands. I think he could hurt him with his feet. I think he could do more damage to him with his feet than with his hands. That don't mean he can't hurt him. I just don't think he's going to hurt him with his hands. I think Jan is going to be the aggressor. You're going to see that throughout the fight. You're not going to see Israel really become the aggressor in the fight unless he hurts Jan. If he don't hurt Jan, and that Polish motherfucker is just giving him that swagger, like you can't do shit, bro. You're gonna see Israel running for his life, because I promise you, Israel cannot stand up to Jan if Jan hit him. And I think it's gonna be those awkward leg kicks. And I agree with you. I think he needs to go to his legs early. Don't worry about going to his head. Don't worry about none of that. Mm-hmm. Low kick him, calf kick him in the side of the knees. Mummify that movement. It's already going to be difficult for him to move in a smaller cage. Mm-hmm. But if you don't go at his legs, then I think Israel could probably get him in the UD. Mm-hmm. But if Jan is low kicking, using his kickboxing, leg kicking him, cutting the ring off, going to the body, getting him good, because I come on now, Israel do not want to go to the ground with Jan. He's not
No.
going to do it.
No,
So
I don't
I
think
don't
so.
see him catching Jan's kicks and sweeping him, taking him to the ground. I don't see him doing that. So
Yeah, no.
those body kicks gonna be there. You might see a couple of kicks to Israel's chest. That shit's gonna hurt, and that's gonna pay dividends. So kicking to the thigh, kicking to the calf, quick little kicks to the body, to the chest. Bro, that Polish power is real, and I'm telling you, it's gonna show up in this fight. I got my boy Jan winning, and I'm gonna tell you, I told him piss people off. 4th round knockout.
Whoo! I love it. I'm all over it, man. I love it, man. I'm so juiced up for the fights this weekend. It is crazy. It's contagious right now. The fight hype right now that's going around for these fights. It's crazy. It is crazy, man. I want Jan Blachowicz to win. I would love to see him put the Polish power on him and literally put that kind of game plan together to at least make it one of those fights where we go, who the fuck's winning? You know what I mean? And we're like, who is winning? You know what I mean? And we're kind of looking at each other and we're like, well, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, if it's one of those types of fights, like I'm kind of on the line of I don't even really care who wins. I want Jan to win, though. I want Jan Blachowicz to win. I really do. I really do. Do I think he has the ability to do it? No. In all truth, I kind of see this fight playing out somewhat similar to the Costa fight. I see it kind of playing out somewhat similar. A lot of movement, a lot of hitting the leg, and then maybe possibly even catching him when he gets in.
With a phantom left hook, you see that phantom left hook he threw on Costa? That's a questionable left hook that he caught Costa.
He was drunk.
With.
He was drunk.
I'm not trying to hate on my boy. I fucks with Israel, but Israel that was a phantom left hook. You gonna see it on the replay. He literally threw the hook. That shit went poof. Like didn't touch nothing but shoulder in air. Just saying.
I could see it playing out similar to the Paulo Costa fight. That's just my opinion, but I mean, that's pretty much what I got for those fights, man. I mean, I'm super excited. Couldn't be more excited for this weekend, people. Couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, man, I'm just for this weekend, man. Like I said, either one of these fights could headline the card by itself, and the fact that we're getting 3 super fights in one night, biggest fight card of the year, biggest fight card in all of combat sports, boxing, kickboxing, no other MMA genre will outdo this card. Won't happen. As far as like, and when I say that, I don't mean because I don't know how to be entertainment wise, but I do feel like with the names on it, it's gonna be dumbass entertaining. But all I'm saying is the names, because you got to think, you got Jan and Sterling, they got their beef. All right, so that's fucking gold right there. Boom.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got Nunes and Anderson. Nunes is the only fighter in UFC history to be a double champion and defend her belt. Both of them. Only one to do this shit. So if Anderson wins, then bam, she's going to be historically next female featherweight champion, all the shit, beats Nunes, all the shit, blah, 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 bam. But if Nunes wins, it's going to be historical because she's defending her belt, and she's the only double champion that has defended her belt multiple times. So she's going to get some historical rights for that. Then you got the main event, Izzy, Jan. Is Izzy going to be a double champ? It's not historical for Jan, but it's historical for Izzy. He's becoming a double champ. He's going to be a champion middleweight. He's going to be a champion light heavyweight. And the thing is, what is Izzy going to do moving forward? Now you this double champ. What you going to do? Because now you got a campaign in light heavyweight now. You're going to be campaigning between middleweight and light heavyweight. And it's some dogs at light heavyweight, dog. It's some hitters.
No, there is.
I mean, and Jan is a 38-year-old man who's, you know what I'm saying, who's trying to, in the sense, he on his way out. You know what I mean? He pretty much is accomplished a lot in kickboxing. He's accomplished the highest of the highest in MMA. I mean, you know, couple more fights, couple big fights. You know, he might call it a day.
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Right.
Not saying he will, because these MMA dudes like to fight until they fucking 50.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? I mean, I'm juiced for it. I'm juiced for every single fight. Every single fight, building up the entire card. We will be live, people. We will be live. So you guys come tune in. It'll be flying out on a bunch of different platforms like we're always doing it. And we'd love to come see the support, especially on such a big night, on a night where, you know, Support means everything, and we're going to have a good ass time. We're going to enjoy ourselves. We're going to have some fun. We're going to watch some good fights. And at the end of the night, hopefully make some money. You know what I mean? Hopefully.
Well, this gives us a little time. We're going to get to the comments for a second. Just want to send a special shout out to everybody that slid in the comment section. Shout out to my boy D Jeff who slid through. I offer you this, man. One of our major every week. Every week we see I offer you this. So shout out to my boy. I offer you this, man. You've been coming through every week faithfully, bro. I appreciate the love, bro.
Same with
love
Jay.
You,
Jay
bro.
Blue's always
Appreciate
Jay Blue's always peeking his head in, shooting in combat cannon. Appreciate it, Jay.
you.
Always there too.
Chain with Ice. Jay Blues. What's going on? Shout out to my boy Jay Blues, who also comes in every week. Ain't missed the cannon yet.
I mean, people.
Appreciate you, man.
We're just trying to keep on growing this thing. We appreciate all the support. We appreciate you guys sharing it out, especially at times like even this weekend when we go live. Like it's huge. It's huge. It's a huge weekend for us, people. Like I said, it's a Super Bowl for MMA. You ain't gonna see a card like this for a long time. Not for a long time.
Loke says, he says that I'm looking at Nunes the wrong way. And he says,
I saw you. Sorry.
His wife is taking care of the money. Nunes is my thing is this, though. Who had the baby? They didn't adopt. Who had the baby?
It was her wife.
Exactly. So postpartum is real. I'm not saying she's gonna kill the kid and nothing like that, but I'm saying like the stress. That's a lot on the woman fresh out. Like she still got to heal. Like it's a lot that goes in there. Look, if you got kids, you should know that. So it's a lot that goes into it, man. It's like even if she's healed physically, the mental strain. She's still gonna need rest. She still is going her diet. All those things play a part. Amanda Nunes is still going to have some wherewithal, even if it ain't the baby. She's still going to worry about her wife.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. You
know, so
Agreed.
I'm not saying what I'm saying is, I'm not saying like Amanda Nunes is not going to win the fight. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, looking at Amanda Nunes from what I know and what I'm used to, she could lose the fight, not because she don't got the skill or the punching power. If she's not hungry, she might be looking past Megan, not even thinking nothing of it. Whoop, I'm just finna beat this bitch, be done with it. And Megan like, And then you fuck around and see Amanda Nunes get punch drunk to death because Megan is using her reach and her length, and Amanda can't get in with none of her punches.
I hear you.
Because Megan is using her range. If we see some shit like that, then what you gonna say? Not saying that's gonna happen, but you never know. It's the fight game.
Absolutely, it's the fight game, people, and that's why we're so excited because there's so many different outcomes. You could write this whole card out probably 6 million different ways. You know what I mean? That's the beauty of it. That is the beauty of it, people.
Chain with Ice said I come every week too. Shout out to my boy Chain with Ice, man. Lieutenant Dan come every week.
Oh yeah, Dan's always there. Everybody hit the like button. We on the road to 100 people.
Yeah, man.
We on the road to 100 people.
Yeah, just but I offer you this is very active in the chat.
Oh yeah, always active in my chats too. Appreciate you, bro. I think we are going to.
We're gonna get big up on this, and it's gonna be I offer you this, and it's gonna be the #1 guy at the cannon, man.
Yeah, we get.
He be the man one be like, give him the cannon, boom.
When we get the channel badges and stuff like that, people. That's for waiting down the road, people. We're waiting.
Right.
People.
You already know, but like we said, man, this weekend we doing the same thing, covering on multiple platforms. We are covering this fight. It's gonna be Gucci. I can't wait. I'm excited, bro. I'm so excited. I can't wait, bro. I'm itching, bro.
Man, there's gonna be some sleepless nights. Man. Waiting for this UFC, man. It's gonna be awesome, man. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be. I'm so excited.
But I gotta dip out in a little bit. I gotta go get with the fam. So we're gonna have to cut up the show out. But I appreciate everybody for coming through. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Shout out to everybody that just slid in, bro. I appreciate you. Y'all gonna see us this Saturday. Getting it in, man. Tune in, man. I'm out.
I'm playing the outro, people.
Depot on the beat.